news because there's been lots of very, very, very big stories over the last week or so. We're going to start in chronological order-ish with the Qantas results. So this was Qantas have released their half-year financial results. So this is in the 6 months till December. Jake, how are they doing?
Yes, so this was, of course, the first, proper half-yearly results published under new CEO Vanessa Hudson. I mean, this was, the first sort of full 6 months of her career as Qantas CEO, because she was sort of replaced by Alan Joyce sort of midway. Sorry, she replaced Alan Joyce sort of midway through the last sort of 6 month period. Qantas got a $1.25 billion half year profit. So that's 13% lower than the equivalent period in financial year 23. This is despite Australians facing cost of living pressures and rising inflation. They're going to be purchasing an additional 8 A321 XLRs to take its future fleet to 28. This was, of course, after the massive $2.465 billion profit that it posted in the last financial year. So this, there was something of a shortfall in terms of lower fares to December, which had a $600 million impact on profit. But this was mostly offset by the airline increasing its capacity. So it was charging lower fares but flying more people.
I would say now, and I don't usually like to bite the commenters, because every so often they can be very horrible and they can hurt my feelings. And this is
what you're doing. This is what your people are doing to Adam.
I can't remember what it is I said exactly. I've actually got it up here.
I mean, look at him here in his brown polo shirt. Just trying to tell you people the truth.
That's all I'm trying to do.
And you're being so. You wouldn't be cruel to a man with glasses, would you?
No, exactly. I mean, I'm visually not as good as I should be. Anyway, I use the term lucrative post-pandemic performance, and somebody was like, well, that's your opinion, etc., etc. However, that is very much true, I would say, because pre-COVID, so in the financial year to 2019, I think off the top of my head, they made about $1.3 billion. So now they're doing effectively what they used to do in a whole financial year in half a year. So their post-pandemic performance is extraordinarily good. In many ways, the way this panned out, being 13% lower, was a perfect result for Qantas, because they were damned if they do and damned if they didn't. If the profits had gone up, that would have looked very bad for Qantas, considering they've got all the problems with seemingly the entire country hating them, and a lot of staff being very angry, and with airfares still being relatively very, very high. People would have said, look, you're just squeezing the average Australian, you're making more money than you should do. If they were significantly lower than what we had this time last year, then people would have turned at Vanessa Hudson and said, wow, this is your first results in charge. And no, technically she's only been in charge a few months, but in reality she's probably steering the ship for a few months before that. They would have said, you're not as good as the maestro, the king, Alan Joyce. So to be a little bit down is kind of a good result. And as Jake said there, the way they've explained it is because airfares have, relatively speaking, dropped a little bit, that hit their profit margins a bit, but they've also got more capacity in the market, which basically means there's more aircraft doing more services, and that has made up for it.
Yeah, well, I will just correct myself there. Yes, of course, it has not been, it was not for the first full 6 months of Vanessa Hudson's tenure, because she only took over halfway through. The first full 6 month results of Vanessa Hudson's tenure will actually come in the financial year results.
So essentially, this was pretty much what we were expecting, to be a little bit lower than this time last year, but still very, very good results for Qantas in terms of how that worked out financially. But as they tend to do when they release these results, they also release a glut of other stories too, just to make our lives a misery. What else did we find out on that fateful Thursday morning?
Well, we found out that there's going to be some improvements to the fleet. So, for example, international Wi-Fi finally coming this year. Finally coming. The Qantas has said it will be fast enough to stream movies, TV shows, and live sports. This will be coming on the A330, Boeing 787, and A380 fleets. They will be progressively retrofitted to enable connection to the Viasat satellite network. So A332Rs, that will be starting in the installation program will be starting in March 2024, with the 787, A380, and A380 and A330 300s. Those installations will be starting from 2025. All of its new aircraft currently on order, so the A350 and the new Boeing 787s will be Wi-Fi capable
You'd
on
hope so,
delivery.
wouldn't you? If you spend all that money on a new plane,
so.
you'd think they'd put the internet in it at least.
Yeah. Also, as part of the Jetstar Boeing 787 cabin refresh, international wide-body Jetstar planes, largely the 787-8s, will be getting the onboard Wi-Fi from 2026.
Now, what I would say on this, and I don't want to be particularly mean, I think it was Vanessa Hudson, it might have been another senior executive, that came out with this tosh. I want to say it's tosh, where basically said, actually, the reason we have delayed putting this in the aircraft is because we wanted the same standard on the international flights as that we would have had on the domestic flights, to which I say that's rubbish. I mean, Qantas is one of the last major international airlines not to offer Wi-Fi on their long-haul services, despite the fact that Qantas offer some of the longest flights in the world. And it has been absolutely extraordinary to say that you can fly from London to Perth, as I did, and not get Wi-Fi when you are paying a premium for a full-service carrier. I think that's terrible.
Now, I believe you do get Wi-Fi on some of these Qantas flights when you're over Australia,
yes,
but once you sort of
true.
leave the coverage area, that's when the Wi-Fi cuts out.
But I did link within this article to another article by a rival news publication, but was actually a very good article where it went through a lot of all the major international airlines and kind of had a look at what their sort of status was in terms of Wi-Fi. Pretty much all of them do offer it. Now, they may not all be being able to stream movies and such like. But I would say that most people, if you want to stream a movie, they download it before they go on the plane, right? But what you want to be able to do is check your emails and be able to keep in touch and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, if it is going to be fast enough to stream movies while you're on the plane, that would be nice.
It would be nice. It would be. I'm not convinced that is going to work. I don't want to sully them before they do it.
I did experience Qantas's free in-flight Wi-Fi on a couple of recent when I went down to Melbourne with Air Services.
Yep.
A couple of Qantas flights on the 737-800s. It was decent. I wouldn't say it was spectacular Wi-Fi, but I managed to stream I think a couple of YouTube videos just fine. So
were you streaming the Australian Aviation podcast?
No, Adam. I never look back. I only look forward. But it's and if you would hope that they would be to a better standard than on the domestic 737-800s on obviously, but no, it worked pretty decently.
So this is going to coincide with the launch of a new Viasat satellite, I think, towards the end of the year, which will give them a lot more coverage. I say, but this will, as Jake mentioned, this will start at the end of the year. It's going to be switched on. I imagine there being like the turning on of the Christmas lights. Somebody will actually press the button ironically on the older A330s, and then they're gonna work through the rest of the fleet. Better late than never. It will be my teacher's report on this.
Yes,
you've got it done in the end, and I can't be too angry that they're doing it.
And it looks to be pretty good Wi-Fi. So you'd hope it would be pretty good Wi-Fi after so long of a wait. Speaking of Qantas and things coming in the future, it seems like something is coming a bit later in the future than Qantas imagined, because sort of tucked down in the press release announcing the results was the news that the Project Sunrise direct flights from Sydney to London and New York are expected to be delayed until maybe mid-2026, because the first of the A350-1000s that are going to be flying from Sydney to London and New York direct, non-stop, there have been manufacturing delays at Airbus, so that these A350s are not going to arrive by the end of 2025, says Qantas.
Yeah, so firstly, this is, and I think I said that this is one of the most significant moments in the carrier's history, but it is. It's kind of, once you can fly from London and New York to Sydney and then Melbourne, that is the closest thing we're going to get to kind of the end of a tyranny of distance. And that is something that Alan Joyce himself said. So this is the most significant new route they've ever launched. And this is something they've almost been pretending to do for a while, because they did it with the 747, which was empty. many years ago. They did it with a 787, which again was like virtually empty. I think it was about 4 years ago. I think they called it something like a Project Sunrise research flight, but but this is actually when they can do it as a commercial venture. Even the words Project Sunrise have become so well known that I wouldn't quite say the average Australian knows of it, but it's very much a mainstream thing. So this is a huge blow for them in terms of making this happen, because they're saying it's a 6-month delay. That's just for the first one to arrive. They've ordered 12, so God knows when they're all 12 are going to arrive. But actually, more broadly, Qantas have an issue at the moment. They don't really, arguably, or at least the pilots union would say, they arguably just do not have enough aircraft for their long-haul international flights, full stop. And so what Qantas are doing, they're supposed to be getting another 12, and I've got to get this right, another 12 787s. I can't break down the two different variants they're getting the numbers there. But another 12 787s, 12 A350-1000s, like traditional normal ones, and then 12 A350-1000s. I think they're calling them now the ULR, ultra long range.
Now are they getting traditional 1000s? Or are they getting traditional 900s?
No, they're not. No, you tried to catch me out there. No, you little silly sod. No, they're getting.
I'm keeping you honest, Adam.
You are keeping me honest. They're getting the traditional 1000s and the ULR, which I think is something that Qantas have actually made up, because I don't think Airbus like that term. They are specially adapted A350-1000s that have basically an extra fuel tank on them. They're also quite unique in that they carry significantly less people than you could carry with the A350. They are doing this because they want to have more premium seating, so they want to have these super fancy first class sort of cabins, rooms, also more business class than you would normally have. And obviously they're doing this, one, because they want to increase profits, because they see this as being a kind of a luxurious route. Secondly, because you would imagine this also saves weight too, which means they can fly further. But what this does mean is that this could well just be the start of the delays. We're just speculating here. This could be very, very damaging for Qantas in the long term. I think it was, I said this to Jake this morning, Michael O'Leary, the Maverick is the most polite way of putting it, CEO of Ryanair, effectively come out and said that the delays they're facing in getting an aircraft could significantly affect their profits, and it could therefore cause ticket prices to go up. As per usual, he'd just immediately throw it onto the customers, wouldn't he? But this is a global issue.
It's Ryanair.
It's Ryanair. But this is a global issue now, because, again, this is the kind of lingering effects of COVID restrictions, obviously the war in Ukraine, all the global instability. This could be a big problem for Qantas and other airlines as well.
I mean, on the subject of other airlines, just touching on this briefly, we're going to have another amazing souped-up product that is going to be delayed because Air New Zealand's Skynest...
The youth hostel bunk beds, did you say?
No, I said the Skynest, Adam. You might want to check your headphones.
They rhyme with youth hostel bunk beds, does that?
They don't.
They don't.
No.
Wow, did my head go?
It's points for trying.
Yeah.
Air New Zealand has ordered these 8 new 787-9 Dreamliners, which were supposed to arrive by the end of this year with the Skynest sleeping pods inside. Now, these are bunk bed style pods available from $400 to $600 New Zealand. Between economy and premium economy, basically for the economy and premium economy passengers on these long-haul flights, at first from Auckland to Chicago, we're supposed to, be able to book these out for, I think it's like an hour or two in the pod just to get a bit of shut-eye on the flight in a reclining position. These new 787-9 Dreamliners have been delayed, and they are not likely to arrive until next year. So this will, until at least mid-2025, says Greg Foran, the CEO of Air New Zealand, which will delay delivery of the innovative new Skynest. His words: the interior retrofit of the current 787 fleet remains on track.
Now, I would say this was before your time. It was semi before your time, but you did a little bit of this. We run stories about a year or so ago about the problems Air New Zealand had flying from Auckland to New York using their 787s, and this is essentially because that is so far away that it's at the kind of top limit of what the 787 is capable of. Obviously, Qantas have the exact same trip. They haven't had some of the issues, and so the issues essentially meant that there was a risk of having to do a kind of stopover.
The camera's escaping.
The camera's escaping. Is that automatically moving, or is that just that it slid behind there? We don't know.
It's got a lovely view of the Australian Aviation screen.
The ceiling, and then Enoch, come down.
I can hear a hissing from the vents. Perhaps he is displeased. Let me just try and fix this up myself.
Just move us here. If Enoch does come in, then what will happen is you'll just see like a hiss, and the screens will go black because we can't show Enoch.
We cannot. Enoch is a dentist, so we can't show you his face on television. We're adding to the Enoch mythos here.
The Enoch myth. The point is that there was times that Air New Zealand threatened, I think, to do a stopover, and there were times when I think passengers who had booked weren't let on the plane, or I think it was luggage actually was taken off to reduce the weight. Qantas didn't have this problem because they actually put a lot less passengers on each flight. But getting these new Dreamliners with the Skynest, I believe, was going to be Air New Zealand's solution to these problems. So this continues that thread a little bit longer. But again, this is all airlines now are going to have this problem. The other thing that in particular issue in Australia, and when I had my favourite co-host Boo, the fighter pilot rather than the man of bad puns, one of the things he said, because he's now flying in the US, he said, when I came back to Australia for a visit, I was reminded of just how old these aircraft fleet were. And they are. Like, you know, you've got Qantas national carrier flying lots of 20-year-old aircraft that kind of look a bit old and rusty.
We've seen a few comments, you know, talking about all the clapped out A330s. I think with some of the
rust buckets,
long in the tooth. People are saying, you know, they're a bit tired. So Qantas needs these new aircraft. It really does, and it's. The fact that it's being delayed, it means that it's, you know, these A330s and these other planes are probably going to have to be serving the routes for longer than Qantas wanted them to.
Which is going to cost them more money as well, because the older the aircraft is, the more maintenance
the less efficient.
The less efficient it is. So if you are watching, listening,
if you are an A330,
yes. Firstly, we admire your service. Keep going.
Secondly, if you have gained sentience, please don't hurt us.
No, I was going to say if you are the CEOs of Boeing or Airbus, sort it out. But I mean, we could just talk to the aircraft directly. Like this is.
Well, funny thing is, we've got an exclusive interview with an A330 next week on the Australian Aviation podcast.
Again, there's so many inaccuracies.
Now, it is very loud most of the time because honestly, it's just the engines going. And you can't really make out what it's saying, if it's saying anything. But we did get the mic up really close to the engine until the nice security guards made us stop.